Hey, this is Stephanie.
And I'm Nina.
And you're listening to Live by the Spirit podcast.
That's so funny.
We're live.
Hi, guys.
That is so funny.
Well, if you can't tell, we were going to do an introduction, but he already voiced his voice.
We have a special guest this week.
Who is it? Tell me.
I don't know.
I don't know.
He is verified on Instagram.
No.
Ben Savage follows him.
That's the next thing I was going to say. The one, the only, the Jude Smith.
I don't know that he
The
does
Jude Smith.
anymore.
That'd
We
be
can
sad
check.
if he unfollowed you.
Yeah, you guys can check. I don't care.
We can check.
I'm trying to get this timer pulled up here. Here we go.
Jude, stop being sidetracked.
Okay, I can.
Well,
No, it's okay because we can talk about why we sound better this week. It's
Oh, yeah.
because we got fancy things going on.
Y'all's stuff sounds good.
thank you.
It sounds good.
We
It's a little quiet, but it sounds good.
I try my best. I
Yeah.
can up the volume.
Yeah. Other than the volume, it sounds great.
We literally
Sick.
sit on the floor in my bedroom.
Kinda
It used to
fun.
be the closet. We've
Used to be the
upgraded.
closet.
Nice.
Yeah.
But this is the first time I was telling this is the first time I literally do not have to hold a microphone in my hands. And I don't know where to put my hands.
Just super sick.
It's super sick.
We
just
should
need
get fancy.
I know. We should just come here every week.
Let's get fancy.
But anyways, yeah. So Jude's on the podcast this week.
Hi, everybody.
If you don't know, well, I guess we can kind of start off with who you are and how you know us.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
So who are you?
Who am I? Where do
Jude.
you want me to start?
You're just everything.
Gosh. Okay. Am I talking to you guys or am I talking to listeners?
Whatever you want to do.
Okay.
That's the beauty.
Sometimes I
of the
make
podcast.
eye contact with her. Sometimes I don't, you know?
Let's
Sometimes we'll
see.
go a complete
Whatever you want.
episode without looking at each other.
That's true. But that's
Okay.
normally when we show up pissed off.
The basics.
Yeah.
I'm a fifth born of 6 kids.
A PK.
Third of 3 boys. One of 6 J siblings. Loud, creative, Christian family. Dad was in the music industry. My mom was and still is an author. Both of them are pastors. Just been been in Nashville my whole life. Have been curious about leaving Nashville at a couple points, but God's always like shut that door, and He's like, "No, you're gonna be here."
Yeah, I'll never forget. I met Jude September 2020, and that was like one of our first conversations. Was you talking about moving out to LA?
Yeah,
I'm like,
right.
well, it was good to know you for the short
Thank
period
God
of
He
time.
shut
I will.
that door. Yeah,
Yeah. Don't jump ahead of us here,
Oh,
Steph.
sorry.
yeah. Sorry.
Ugh.
Was that good?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was perfect.
Yeah.
Sweet.
What do you do?
Oh yeah, what do you do for a living?
What do I do?
Yeah.
He eats a lot of Reese's.
Because that
drinks
can
a lot
lead
of
us.
Coke.
That can lead us into the episode.
Called out.
Accurate.
Other than eating Reese's and drinking Coke all day.
Yeah. No water.
I'm blessed to be able to get to make music for a living and do content for some other brands. There's a couple different pots, but most of it is music creation or content or doing like some sort of content creation, whether that's like video editing or just short form content, which has been more than I thought it would be in the past. If I were to have thought forward to this point, I would have thought that most of it would have been music right now. And it is in some forms, like most percentage of that is music. If it's content work, it's about music, which is great. But the content game, I think, has surprised me more than anything. And I think it surprised a lot of people. Like a couple of years ago, I don't think we would have thought that the short form content thing would be what most people were attracted to. So that's like a good probably third of what I do for work. But yeah, music and content kind of sums it up.
And you're very good at it.
Thank you.
We work on a lot of stuff for socials for Eastgate Worship and for just our church in general. I would like to start off how we've all met. I have a
let's
funny
do it.
story about how I kind of
Let's
met
do it.
Jude.
Go there.
So I got coffee with this guy my junior year of college. And I mentioned that I lived in Nashville. And of course you get like, oh, do you know so-and-so? And I'm like, no. And he's like, so I follow this guy on Instagram. He plays the guitar. He's so cool. And he was talking about how he follows you. And,
What was
and
his name again?
His name is Derek.
Okay.
So
I've
if
not met
Derek's
him.
listening to this, no, you haven't. If Derek's listening to this, hi, Derek. But I remember him and he showed me your Instagram and I was like, yeah, I don't know who that is. That's cool though. Like, that type of thing. And then we started going to church. I started coming to Eastgate, which is our church, which is Jude's parents' church. And I think it was like 6 months later, I looked on Instagram and saw that he had reshared one of your brand posts that you had done of you doing something. And I was like, you know Jude, ? And he was like, Stephanie, this is the guy I showed you at that coffee one time. And I said, it is? And he's like,
wow,
yeah.
that's right, yeah.
And I was like, that's my friend Jude. I'm friends with him. And he's like, you told me you didn't know him. And I was like, I know him now. And and I was like, look and see, he follows me. And he...
That's very consistent with like people's retention of personalities online. Like we see all these videos and we laugh at them, we share them, whatever, but there's never really much personal investment in that person.
Yeah.
And then you end up going, oh, I know that guy.
Yeah.
You know, like it kind of takes a second sometimes. Some people are like really viral for certain things. Like my buddy, he does this one shtick like over and over again. And so people see his face and they like know him for that certain thing. But it's very possible to like see people online and like totally like forget that you know them, you know?
Yeah.
100%.
But it was just crazy because again, that was like 2018, 2019. I had no idea who you are. And now it feels
We met 2020.
We met 2020. So it feels so weird that I did not know you at that time.
Right.
Because like, I mean, I think we can all agree, like you're one of my best friends. Like it's just weird to think that you were not in my life during that period. So it's kind of funny now looking back at it.
Small world.
But yeah, I started going to Eastgate, which is Jude's parents' church. That's how I met Jude. And then you all heard the story of how, actually, we've already told the story of how you met Jude.
Yeah.
If you'd like to reshare
Podcast number 1.
If you'd like
I like to hear it from Nina's perspective.
Yes.
Because, okay, well, it's funny because...
It's also so funny, like before you share, like kind of trying to pen people down as to like who they are. When you first meet them, you're like, okay, they're this kind of person, whatever. You like automatically figure them out in your head. So you think. And then you get to know them. You're like, oh, wow, I was like very wrong, you know?
Yeah.
About who? About both of us?
Oh, about Nina.
Oh, about Nina.
Like meeting her for the first time, she was like very matter of fact and just very, you know, like very confident and very mature. But then like getting to know like your goofier side, like your deeper side, like and your heart for the Lord and the word, like all those things. I'm very bad at being like, oh, I've got that person figured out.
Yeah.
And you know.
Well, to be fair, when I met you, I was very depressed. So that's probably why.
I would have never thought that.
Well, it's
would have never thought.
I
But tell the story.
not,
Tell the story first though.
So when I met you, it was by Steph tricking me into coming to the movies with you guys, the drive-ins. I did not know you and Nick were going to be there. Right. And I walk into her apartment, and I had never been to your apartment before. And I walk in the door, and I'm like, who on earth are these random dudes sitting on the couch watching the worst episode of Boy Meets World ever to exist? And I was like, what the heck, Steph? Like, I thought it was just going to be us. And like, this is the first time we had hung out since I moved to Nashville. So I was like, what the heck? Yeah. Then we go, and you're driving 90 down the interstate, and I'm like, well, I'm gonna die. You know, this is great. And you're asking.
It was Steph's car, so I mean,
yeah,
it's whatever.
But you, right off the bat, were very intentional in asking a lot of questions, and I'm not used to people being like that. So I
didn't get any back. It was okay though.
Well, I'm not that person. So, and I'm like, there's no way people are that nice. Like, people aren't that nice. And then I actually got to know you.
I thought that too when I first met you.
And then you got to know me. You're like, he's not that nice.
He's the meanest person I've ever met in my life. No, that's something. Oh, sorry.
No, wait, finish.
That's something. No, I was just going to say, that's something that I love about you is you do not know a stranger. And I wish I had that. Our friend Megan has a very similar personality. I wish I was more like that. Because for me, going to a new place, you've said this story. When I first met Jude, I was super quiet, which I'm not quiet.
You are not quiet.
Yeah.
I'm not a quiet person, but I was when I'm in an area where I don't know anybody, I think I just I'm like, okay, I need to assess, see who I can vibe with. And there's a lot of, I think also showing yourself right away can be a little scary.
Yeah, that subconscious of scared of like, oh, people aren't actually going to like me if they know who I really am.
And so it's always nice going to places with Jude because Jude will go straight up to people and just be like, hi, my name's Jude. What's your name?
Yeah.
Which can also be scary.
Which can also be scary, but that's why I love going to places with you. Like we went to a Preds game one time with Jude. It was just us three. And then we were in downtown Nashville, and I forgot that I had a friend's church, they do worship night on Broadway on Friday nights, and we just so happened I think we only had to wait 30 minutes or something like that, so we went and literally was going around meeting people, and I'm like, this guy already knows half the people here at this point.
It was so funny because literally like 2 days ago I was thinking about that and thinking about the guy who was like, I used to smoke weed, but now I don't. I was thinking about that the other day. So funny.
My gosh.
Look at those 3 beautiful unison waveforms right there.
That is so funny.
Yo, this is very
I used
professional.
to smoke weed, but now I don't.
Well, so then when I went to follow you on Instagram after I had met you, this kid I went to high school with was following you. And I was like, why does he have so many followers? I still don't know.
I still don't know. No, to the like meeting people in public thing, it's like I think everyone to some degree wants that. So I think it's maybe that's part of why I try to do that. I'm not always, in that mood, but I think it's comes from a place of knowing that deep down I want people to come talk to me, like get to know me, and so someone's got to do that, so not everyone opens that door when you knock on it, but I think it's part of it.
Well, you're also just super friendly and you're intentional. Like the first time I met you, you invited me to your house.
Yeah.
Which sometimes is not the safest thing. I don't know if you know that.
I gotta get better about that.
Creepy.
It was my first Sunday at Eastgate.
Steph, that was the first red flag.
Joe came over I met Joe cutting my hair 2 weeks ago, then invited him to Frisbee. We played Frisbee, and then right after Frisbee we went to Chick-fil-A, then back here. I was like, hey, you want to come over?
I didn't know you didn't know him. I was talking to him like he knew you.
Yeah,
I know now.
Yeah, we literally asked him how he knew you. He's like, well, I just cut his hair the other day. Yeah. And I was like,
you get a read on people. I'm not like
funny.
An idiot necessarily, but he's a cool guy.
Yeah.
So we hit it off.
That was funny.
Yeah, no. Well, the reason we brought Jude on was for one, he's one of our best friends. We have a group chat called Always Hungry in the Spirit.
Well, it started because someone was hungry, and then it got changed to Always Hungry.
You texted first.
You did.
Someone was talking about food and how they're always hungry, and then I named it Always Hungry. And then it started, and then we started talking about like the word a lot more, and then it got changed to Always Hungry.
Our first text in that group chat was
September 9th.
Was you. You texted the both of us saying,
is that right?
Yeah.
How do you know that?
Because she looked it up the other day.
We were talking about it.
We were looking up something for the Predators game.
And
I was looking up that gif of the tomato from VeggieTales. I forgot his name.
Oh yeah, Bob
the tomato.
There's a gif. I will never forget sending this gif in this group chat. Jude was so proud of me.
It's the gif where Bob the tomato is looking up, and then he ponders to himself really deeply, looking down, like downward.
It was just like the moment I said it was
having an epiphany.
And so I was looking for that, and then it just stirred another thing, and she ended up looking at the first text.
We were at Jen's.
Oh yeah.
I don't remember how we got on the topic.
But anyways,
so I screenshotted it. You texted Jude saying, "You guys hungry?" ? Steph said, "Yes, we're going to pick something up on the way. What were you thinking?" And I said, "Always." And that's when it changed to Always Hungry.
Classic.
And then we ended up going to Chipotle.
Nice.
Yeah.
We should just stop the podcast there. That's great.
Great. That's our friendship.
12 minutes.
All right. Hope y'all enjoyed that.
No.
Anyways, peace and blessings, y'all.
But anyways, the reason why we have Jude on here is because we have always dived in the Word together and grown together. I mean, Jude and I got rebaptized on the exact same day 2 years ago. No, that was not 2
years ago.
2 years
ago. 2 years
yep.
ago?
2 years. Yep, this summer.
That's weird.
Yep.
But we like done that together. I feel like we've all three been through a similar season, but also we've been wanting to talk about music, the music industry, of a Christian, what music we think we should be listening to and stuff. And you have a lifetime of knowledge when it comes to music.
Wow,
so,
lifetime. I don't know about that, but share what I'd
know. Yeah. So did you want to start?
First question, how did you get into doing music?
Well, like anybody else, I mean, it kind of starts with a natural passion. I believe that God gives people a desire and a passion to do certain things and a gifting to do certain things, and I'm confident that that's my gifting. My brother, I would say about my one brother, Jason, he's definitely more like mechanically inclined, and he's like very good with like building things, very handy, and like I can venture to do those things and figure them out, but that's definitely not my natural like inclination, Whereas God's definitely given me a ability to hear melodies and write songs and passion for chords. We could geek out about that for 20 minutes if you guys want to.
Steph's like, no.
But like I love, that's definitely where I'm inclined to, and I just see that as like what you're asking, which is like how do you get started? I just feel like, I mean, I credit that to the Lord. Like he's built me for a certain purpose. And so I wanted to be a good steward of that. I've not always been 100% perfect in that, but that's something he's teaching me right now is, okay, he's definitely given me the gifting and the passion to do it. Now, how does he want me to do it, and in what fashion? So, so definitely he gave me the passion for it, but I kind of just started in church, really. I think probably playing drums at like 6 or 7. I started playing there, and just been kind of, church is a great place to hone that gift and like practice in front of people and for the Lord, obviously, but it's a gracious place where you can mess up as a kid and they'd be like, oh, that was good job. That was good job, you know? And I remember like this, I remember this conversation that I had to have with my dad. I was like way too young to be playing on the Sunday team at Eastgate, our church now. I think I was probably like 11, and my older brothers were like a little unsure of if that was appropriate for like such a young kid to be up there. And ever since then, my dad decided to let me up there and play, and ever since then I've been up there. So that's definitely just been a place to grow in that. And then I started singing around like 18, started writing songs when I was about 18, 19. And then, just from there, I guess the picture I'm painting is it was a very natural thing. It was just something that was in the house. My dad was is still a songwriter and was in the music industry in the 80s and 90s. And so music was no stranger in our house. There were always guitars everywhere. And so that blue guitar right there is a family heirloom. It's actually one that my mom bought for my dad in the 80s. And so all of my siblings have played that guitar, and it's just kind of been around. So doing that for a number of years led to sharing that online, and actually around when Vine was a thing, I was like posting music clips of things and then I started recording when I was about 18 or 19. And then from there, that kind of led to like sharing some ideas online, and that's really when I think it became possible to start supporting myself doing music online, and half that being content creation / streaming on Spotify and whatnot. So it kind of led that way. God, obviously, I credit that all to Him. I believe that He's sovereign in every way, and that He like gave me the family that I had and put me in the city that I'm in, and the abilities that I have for a reason. And so He put me in the church for those reasons as well, to hone them there. And that just kind of led to putting out my first project when I was like 20. So I think it was like 2015. I put that out, and I started to just kind of showcase what I was doing online. And then where it kind of turned to more of a profession and being involved more in the industry is around like 2019 and 2020. My page started to grow. I was not expecting this, but I just started posting like music clips online of like me playing, or just kind of doing some fun stuff that would just be kind of like a fun thing to scroll by and watch, and just kind of started offering that to people in it. And I did this one video with my buddy Kurt Henderson, and it like blew up. And he had a big following at the time, so I was like really excited to get to do a video with him. But doing that with him on Instagram was like the first time that I was like, oh wow, you can like actually reach a lot more people if you're really intentional with content and trying to put something out there that will that people want to stop and watch and share.
Yeah.
So that was like a great vehicle for sharing what I do as an artist. And I already had stuff on Spotify, and that kind of started to feed the Spotify thing, and it made it more possible to start playing shows and stuff. And so, the social media thing has opened up a lot of doors. And so from 2019, all that started to grow. Again, 100,000 followers in a year, which was insane. And God gave me that platform right at the perfect time, because then in 2020, it was wild. Like the world shut down. That's when Steph and I met. And then, and then like just God like really put a lot of us together in a really, what's the word? Reclusive season? Like a very hidden season, I think is a better word. And so God had given me this platform. I don't know how deep you guys want me to go into this, but I guess I'll just kind of finish up real quick. But that was just a time to like go, okay, Lord, like all this has been growing. Now, what do I do with it? Now that like, you've given me more of a desire for your word and wanting to share more about you and my faith, like how does that work into my music, and how do you want me to share that? And so for the last couple of years, that's kind of been my desire, is to kind of let that permeate my music more and be more honest about my faith. And it's been cool to see like the response from that, because I think I was a little nervous about like, man, like, can I do this? Like I was definitely putting myself out there as more of a secular artist. I wasn't like explicit or anything, but I wasn't explicitly saying, Jesus is Lord and pinning myself as a Christian artist. But as I started to open up about that, I actually realized that I had an audience for that and that wanted to hear that, which was really cool. And not that it's even about that, but it was a cool confirmation. It kind of felt like God was saying, hey, this is the direction I want you to go. So that's kind of the long and short of it. But it kind of started just from being in church, and then social media really helped kind of push it to the next level.
I'll never forget. We went to Chipotle, and you showed me the album artwork for "I Used to Be Like You."
Oh wow!
It was because it was from our baptism,
right?
And I remember you telling me how nervous you were for that song.
Yeah, right.
And it's if you haven't listened to it, please go listen to it. It's so
it's
good.
A great song.
It's so good, and it makes
Thank
me
you.
excited because I know all the stuff you're working on now is going to be so similar to that, and that's something that Nina and I've talked about this a lot, but like listening to Christian artists who I love worship music. We all love worship music. It's important to have worship music, but it's nice to listen to artists that are God-centered focused, but this song isn't necessarily about just worshiping God.
Right,
It's just about everyday life. So I think that's kind of going into my another question we have for you. Like you said, you were doing secular music, and then now you have a transition to what you're doing now, which is great. Were you, and we've had conversations about this, so I know the answer, but for the people listening to the podcast, when did you start really feeling convicted from God that you were maybe going a little too far into the secular music world and you needed to stop and start?
Yeah, well, the thing was, I don't know if it ever felt like it was a conviction that I was doing something wrong per se, or like that I was in too deep. It was just like that God kind of like halted my progress is really what it felt like. There's a lot more detail to it, obviously, but like that 2020 year was immediately preceding a huge, successful year for me. I was like ready to get going, had some plans, had some goals, and then like everybody else, the world just shut down. It was like, that's just not going to happen. And but God like really, used that to kind of get my attention. I just kind of set music aside for like a year. I think I put some stuff out, but I was like really searching on the inside, and God like allowed me to struggle with a few things and go through some fire to like really realize like how much I need him, and like First Peter became a really important book to me. Like, don't be surprised at the fiery ordeal that has come upon you to test you, although as though something strange were happening to you, but rejoice in as much as you participate in the sufferings of Christ. So it's like God allowed me to participate in some of that suffering. And then as I was going through those hard times, it kind of made me realize how frivolous what I was doing was. Not that it's bad by any means, but it was just like, it was all about me and like what I can do, and sure, what I can offer people and give them songs that are enjoyable, hopefully. But it definitely made me realize how shallow my intentions were. And I don't even think I was being cocky or arrogant. It was just like what's the point of this kind of thing. So that's really what it was. It was like, okay, that was great, and I've enjoyed doing this, but like, there's something more out there, and people who are way beyond where I'm at in music will say the same thing. They go, there's got to be something more to this. There's a famous John Mayer song. He says like, something's missing and I don't know what it is. No, I don't know what it is. And it's like, I know what it is, and I'm not trying to be arrogant, but it's like, man, like we all have a God-sized hole in our heart. So God really allowed me to experience that turmoil that year. And, it was a tough time, but I thank God for it, because it really got me to realize that I need him. And so going through that, obviously, like Steph said, we got baptized on the same day. That was like a launching period of, okay, how can I give this message to people now? It wasn't necessarily like I felt a conviction about doing pop stuff, because I don't know, maybe the Lord will have me be part of pop stuff in the future. But definitely right now I feel like my head is in a different spot. So whatever you do it all to the glory of God. That's kind of how I see it.
Yep. 2 Corinthians 10:31.
Or no,
Like
1 Corinthians 10:31.
1 Corinthians 10:31.
One of them Corinthians.
Yeah, one of them too. They're both good books.
Yeah. It's good stuff.
Why are you looking at me?
I was seeing if you had any more questions.
I used to smoke weed, but now I don't.
Oh my gosh, it's gonna be
What
stuck
was
in
the
my
rest
head
of that
now.
song?
I don't remember. That's the only takeaway I have from that whole entire night. That
was the best thing ever.
There were several takeaways I have from that night. The Preds won.
By the way, I did not used to smoke weed, just for the record.
Yeah, none of us did. But the Preds won that night. We walk outside. That was the night that you found out what Be Real was for the first time, because we walked. I'll never forget this, Jude. We walked outside.
You have amazing memory.
I do. We walked outside and someone screamed, "Be Real" just went off.
And we took a Be Real
and everyone,
outside.
and I like thousands of people are leaving this arena. We just watched the Nashville Predators play hockey, and everyone just stops to take their Be Real.
Heck yeah.
So, yeah.
That was crazy.
It was a crazy time.
Don't be a sheep. Anyway, go ahead. No, I'm just kidding.
That was funny.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. Did you have anything else? We're normally better.
I did.
Had bullet points.
The thing is, we had a full-on phone conversation about this, I don't remember what we talked about.
I'm just chilling, yo.
I know you're just chilling.
I feel like there was another question.
There were several other questions. I guess we can keep kind of going in the conversation of, yeah, I mean, I can speak for myself. There are times now where I'm listening to artists whom I love. I'll give an example. Everyone's going to roll their eyes in this room. Taylor Swift.
Ready, Nina? Go.
We had to because you told us to.
Yeah, but there are times where I'm listening to her music nowadays, and there's certain lyrics that I'm singing along to, and I'm like,
is this good?
This isn't. And we talked about it on the podcast during her concert. I got up and left during a segment because her dancers were dancing around jack-o'-lanterns, and they were pretending like doing all these witchy looking dance moves. I was like, I don't want to be a part of this. So I went up to concessions and went to the bathroom and spoke in tongues in the corner. Did what I needed to do.
She FaceTimed me during the time. She's tweaking out.
No, but there are times where I have been feeling convicted about music that I've been listening to. And I think music, particularly, we live in Music City, so we're constantly around music. I think something that I've really been careful monitoring lately is the music I'm listening to and the music that I'm singing along to, because we can sing songs about I don't know, of course only Taylor Swift lyrics are coming to my head, but I don't know, little things like that are just not glorifying God in a positive way. And then there are artists that do, and it's why am I choosing to sing along and say these things out loud when I've been doing so much spiritual growth?
I think it's something you get used to if you don't if you are constantly desensitized to that type of music. There's music like Coldplay that's kind of just neutral, that's just fine. But I put on some, I'll keep his name out of it, but I was putting on this very popular pop guy's new record a year ago in this room. And God had me in a very, not that he's let me off my leash necessarily, but he had me in a very, very strict spot last year of just very strict regiment of or intake of really just his word and just being around the right people. And that was kind of all I did for a while, and still do that. But this particular time I was very, very heightened and sensitive to music like that. And I think that's a good thing. I think we should always aim to be there. But this particular time I played this record by this guy in my room here, and I felt the peace leave. The peace leave my room.
I was like, this.
Yeah, and I was like, whoa. And we can talk more about this maybe on the next episode, but being a friend of the world is, it has its consequences. When you justify listening to those things, it's not villainizing people, and it's not being, oh, you're not one of us, I'm going to avoid you. It's not that. It's when you have your roots in this world and you have one foot in this world and one foot in the kingdom of God, then you're going to be doing the splits, and it's going to hurt at some point. So you either have to put both feet in the world and enjoy it, and then enjoy it for what you can because it's all you're going to get for 80 years, or you choose to serve God and be a foreigner here, on earth, like Scripture says, and go outside the camp where Jesus is. In Hebrews 13, it says that, and be fully devoted to that. Yeah. And I think when you are walking that way, and then you dabble in what you used to dabble in, it's whoa. It's almost like being, and here I am drinking a Coke, but it's when you go a while without drinking Coke, and then you have a Coke again, you're like, whoa, that's really sugary.
Yeah. Yeah. You come to realize how unfulfilling it is to be in the world. Because we can read the word, and then it's like the minute we go a day without it, it's like I feel so unfulfilled by the life that I'm living when I'm not fully living it for God.
Yeah.
And it is like, I think the last several months, like all of us have kind of been in the same point where we're like, what should we just not be doing that we've been doing, and what should we fully be doing for God?
Right.
But,
yeah, I think it's also interesting too. I'm going to see Jonas Brothers in the month, so I've been listening to all their music, trying to get excited.
Nice.
you sinner. Just kidding.
You know what? But
Hey, Nina, do you want to start our own real Christian podcast?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
just leave stuff out of it?
Yeah, sounds great.
excuse me.
Really living by the
Gosh.
Spirit with Nina Trank and Jude Smith.
Excuse me. Anyways, continue what I
How
was
to
saying.
not be a friend of the world with Nina and Jude.
And not Steph.
I'm kidding.
Anyways, back to what I was saying. I was watching the documentary they released back in 2020, and it's so interesting because they also grew up in church. That's where they got their start, is church.
Yeah.
And I know this is a conversation we've all had as a friend group before, and I know I've had this conversation with you too, because of the career because obviously you love music, and that's something that the Lord has put on your heart to do, and that's your gift. I could say the same thing for them. They grew up in the church, and I can see, because of instances that happened in the church because of their career, they do not have a good taste in their mouth when it comes to church life. And I could sense it when watching it. I was like, these three guys have been so hurt by the church because they wanted to make secular music instead of having the church embrace them and love on them and support them through it and help and guide them. And I think nowadays it's so important for people in the limelight, whether it's musicians or actors or actresses, we talked about this in the celebrity episode, to be careful when you claim that you're a Christian, because you can put out falseness into the world, because obviously, like we were just talking about, you'll have one foot in the world and one foot in Christ, and it's great having these musicians out there proclaiming Jesus Christ and all this stuff, but then when you see them getting drunk and doing other things, or making music that uses curse words and different things like that, it can feel very, and obviously we're all in tune with that because we've worked on our relationship with God, we've grown together as a community and different things like that, but to new Christians that can be very dangerous. And so I know for me, even though I love them, even though they claim that they're Christians and different things like that, I have to watch how much I listen.
Yeah, I think that's definitely smart. I think one thing that's interesting I've been thinking about in doing music, obviously my hope is that I can sustain a family outside of, right now I'm just a single guy. So I can, praise God, I can support myself, and he provides for me in the work that I have in doing music by myself. But when it comes to supporting a family, I gotta, I'll have to make a little bit more someday. My goal, would be then that's going to mean you need more exposure. Then you need more people to know who you are, know about your music, and that would be the goal. Hopefully that doesn't go to my head. But one thing I've been thinking a lot about is
we'll help humble you.
Yeah, you guys always do. But there's a really interesting bit in Scripture, 1 Thessalonians, I think it's 4. It's 4. Right after that bit where he talks about being sanctified, I think it might be 4:10 or something. He says, "Make it your aim to live a quiet life and work with your hands, so that you won't be dependent upon anybody." And that's such a fascinating scripture to me, because it's really saying don't. I take that as. Are you going to pull it up?
Yeah.
Real quick? Yeah, pull it up and read it.
That was actually a scripture I was thinking about.
Yeah, it's an interesting. I don't know. I think I know what that's saying, which is hey, don't wear yourself out to get rich and famous and have everyone know who you are, because to some degree that brings on more pain than is necessary. So, where I'm at right now is okay, Lord, rather than that being my pursuit, I think my pursuit needs to just be being obedient to you, and then leave the results to you, and if you want to bless what I'm doing, then great. But I have seen so many, and I'm only saying this because you bring up the Jonas Brothers. I've seen so many examples of people who have walked with the Lord, who have at some point either turned away. I don't know where their faith is, so I'm not going to judge that. But we've all seen examples of people who have walked with the Lord, and then success changes that. Yeah. So it's in my mind, I'm okay, then I don't want that unless God gives it to me. You know.
Which, I can speak on this from a friend standpoint. I think it's so, because obviously I knew you somewhat in 2020, like we met September 2020, and then you had some possibilities of possibly moving out to LA and doing some stuff, I think beginning of 2021, if I'm not mistaken. And I think obviously I know you have a whole other, testimony thing that we won't share, but I think it's so amazing that you trusted in the Lord, because I think you would, here's the thing, I think Jude's going to be successful no matter what, because your music is awesome. Like whether you went that secular route or not, it would have been crazy, but I think the stuff you're making now is so much more faith-filled, and you're going to have a better head on your shoulder when it comes to things like that. And that's why I think it's so amazing that the Lord kind of stopped you for a little bit. And, think about all the things that you couldn't have done, like the worship album and all these different things. And even your social media following. Like I had a vision for Jude at the beginning of the year that he's in the field, like spreading out seeds. And you've just done that simply just being on social media and just like proclaiming your love for God and not getting into arguments in your comments, but just showing people love and grace. And that's what we need more of in the industry, which is sad because the industry wants to kill, because the industry is just covered in the devil. That's what we need to see more in. And I know Nina had that verse come up.
Yep. Yes.
Sorry.
What
it's
is it?
1 Thessalonians 4:11 and 12.
I was so close.
Aspire to live quietly and to mind your own affairs and to work with your hands as we instructed you, that you may walk properly before outsiders and be dependent on no one.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's so good.
Except for Jesus.
Yeah, that's a great verse.
Yeah, I was actually going to bring up that whole passage when we talked about that. Just living a life pleasing to God.
So it's like, I guess where I'm at now is like, I don't really want that next level of exposure unless God needs me to have it,
Yeah.
I've been, I've got a decent following on Instagram, which is nice. It's not like some celebrity or anything, but God has given me a platform on there, and I now know why, which is he's putting the pieces together slowly but surely, but he gave it to me in 2019. My life kind of messed up 2020 and 2021, and then God just allowed me to really experience more of him in those times. And now I've still got that platform. It's like, okay, God, now what do you want me to do with that? So I've been just sharing scripture on there and sharing more of my faith. And what's cool is like the thing that used to get the most engagement on my page was like posting a guitar video or something, or like a guitar solo. But not that this is even what it's about, but like I put out a story about me reading the word or reading 1 John, and it gets like twice as much engagement. And again, I'm not saying that's why I do it, but it is a confirmation to me that like, wow, like God's given me a fan base and an audience that wants to see that. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, they already love the word like I do. What would it be like if my music went there? So to anyone listening, just pray for me, because I'm still in the middle of, exploring that and developing that new route, because I put out a single, I Used to Be Like You.
So good.
But I've not put out really a project that showcases that whole direction change from an EP or album standpoint. So I'm just working on that right now.
It's coming.
It'll be awesome.
I can speak for myself because obviously I know Nina's not on TikTok anymore. It's amazing to me. And maybe it's just because it's formulating towards me now, how much godly content I've been getting the last 2 weeks alone. My For You page, I'd say, is 80% people in the Word or people praying.
Way to go, TikTok.
And I don't, and again, I know
the algorithm.
Well, I don't know if it's the algorithm because they know the type of things that I like and different things like that.
Depends on how you interact with certain videos, and then they build it off of that.
For sure. But it's been so, because I was trying not to be on social media as much as I am. I work in social media, so I'm on it a decent amount, but like personally try not to be on a lot. And I find that I spend a lot of time on TikTok now, but I know that the time I spend on TikTok is still listening to is still like honestly in a way praising God, because the content that I'm liking and I'm interacting with is godly content, is the amount of people I follow now that just share the love of God, and then that makes you want to do it too.
Yeah.
And I think that's been the fun thing about doing the podcast, is just because we have so many outspoken people in our friend group who go on stage and share their faith and share things that happen to them, and it's been nice for us to get to do it ourselves, because I think the Lord can give us callings, and I do think that the Lord's given me a very powerful voice, not a singing voice, unlike you two, but but just
I would agree with that. Yeah,
but just a voice in general. And right now, obviously, it's not to be on stage, but I was like, okay, Lord, how do I do that? And that's when the podcast, I felt the Lord really steering us to do the podcast more, and that had already been something on our hearts.
Yeah.
It's cool.
And things. And so, yeah. Did you have something else?
You also have a very powerful prayer voice.
Yes,
I think that's
you
what it
really
is.
do.
That is something that has just been really coming out recently. My dad was bringing that into me earlier the other day too, because we were at Outpour. Outpour, we have a monthly worship night at our church, but we had a friend who was going through something, and the end of the Outpour ended. We grabbed this person, we were praying over them, and I kind of started it and led it, and then we were all going around, and I just kept feeling like the Lord was telling me things. It kept showing me things, so I kept saying that. But I had told my dad, I was like, hey, I need to talk to you before you leave, so just don't leave until you talk to me. And we get done with the prayer. We didn't realize this. We'd been praying over this person for 45 minutes. We prayed over this person for 45 minutes. It felt like seconds.
It felt like 10 minutes to me,
so
honestly.
I look around and my dad's nowhere to be found. So I call him on the way home, and he's like, Stephanie, I had to go home. But he called me the other day, and we were talking about things and just about direction and stuff. And he was like, just watching you in your gift from God that night was insane. And I was like, really? Because sometimes I feel like I'm hogging prayer when I do that. But it's also like if I'm confident the Lord's telling me something, I'm like, I need to tell the person.
You should, yeah.
So I think, and it's been so cool for me the last year to see, because all of us, I mean, I can speak for the three of us, because we've all gone through similar seasons together. That's what's been so cool about like our connection as friends. But all of us going through the same thing, but also growing so much more in our spiritual gifts. Whether, mine's prayer and music and whatnot, it's been so cool. So that was just like a reaffirming thing for me too. But
yeah.
Did you have another verse?
Kind of. Maybe I shouldn't share this now. Maybe we should save it. I don't know.
Okay.
But it is talking about music.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So kind of like what you were saying, Steph, like the more we are growing, the more I feel convicted about what I'm listening to. So what I love about Spotify is you can click on your liked songs, and it has all your genres at the top, and you can click it and it sorts all the songs. I did not know that I had a worship filter on there for like a month. So I've listened to nothing but worship music.
Yeah, queen.
But the minute I went and started listening to anything else, I'm like, skip, like immediately, like it's not even appealing to me anymore. And I think it's just the more that we are really growing in like weeding out, kind of like what we were saying, how much we are in the world, but we're not of the world, because we are of God, and like we want to do what is pleasing to Him. Right. And it says that in in Colossians 3 that we need to be seeking the things that are above, not the things that are of earth. And it's like, how far do we go with that? And I feel like that's something new in my faith of like,
that question right there is where my head is right now. How far does that hole go?
100%.
I wouldn't call it a hole, but like, how deep is that? And I think if I'm being honest, like it's a lot deeper than what we think.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. The other day, it was Monday, myself and my brother were having a conversation just like this. And I was asking him, I was like, what do you think we should talk about with Jude on the podcast? He's like, you should talk about being in the world, but not of the world. So I got the idea from, so thank you, Jonah. You're probably not listening, but thank you. And we just went into this whole rabbit hole of talking about like social deception games and lying. And Jonah was like, is that really a lie? I said, well, it's not the truth. So yeah, it is. And like, how far does that go? Because whether you like it or not, when you continue to to do those things, it becomes a habit. So you can make a habit of lying without even thinking of it because you're playing a game.
Right. Well, it also, and what she's talking about, for anyone who's wondering, is games like Mafia or like games where you
dark.
Or Murder in the Dark, or games where you like deny, like just lie and deny that you're the killer. Which is like, for one, you're participating in a game that's killing and murdering people, and then you lie about it. So it's like not God honoring. If you're not a believer, you're not called to live to that standard. God, as a believer, we are walking in that way because God's called us to. We perfect holiness out of reverence for God, 2 Corinthians 7:1. But the point, I think, the real harm in those games is I was duping so many people last time we played, and I hate the thought that they now know that I'm able to deceive them.
Yeah.
And that's what you don't want. That's the bad fruit of playing games like that.
100%.
We talked a bit about the incident we had an incident when we were playing. We call it ouch in the dark instead of murder in the dark because that's what we were convicted of.
Is it even better because we're still killing
at this point? We're never gonna play it again.
Yeah.
But I will say, like, I did not think you were the killer.
I really didn't.
I know. I don't.
You were so good.
I don't like how well I deceived everybody. I'll just say that.
Well,
and also to clarify something I just said a second ago, that God does want even people who don't believe to walk in. He doesn't want unbelievers to lie and to kill, just as much as he doesn't want believers to not kill and not lie.
Yeah.
But the point is, if we are calling ourselves believers, like, we ought to know better. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and we have to physically do what the word tells us to do, because in playing games like that, we're doing exactly what it says in Ephesians 4:27. It says, "Give no opportunity to the devil." We are giving him that opportunity by playing games that allow arguments to break out, because it's so easy to get annoyed with people playing games like that. People can get mad at each other. It's happened. Like, we are allowing the enemy to cause division between us by playing games like that.
Yeah. I'm going to pause us because we're starting to get to the end of the episode, and there's one other question I had before we can discuss this. We're going to do another episode with Jude, so don't worry. He's coming back. Do you have, because I know I have a couple artists nowadays that I listen to that, I mean, worship music can be included in this, but like for me, like I was talking about earlier, it's been nice listening to faith-filled artists. Do you have any ones that you recommend?
Gosh, not a ton. I mean, I do listen to a good amount of worship music, but there's not like a ton of Christian. I have to really be on myself to like constantly take in new music. I don't do it a lot. I find the stuff I like, and then I just go back to that.
Yeah.
If anyone knows me, like, that is my thing. I'm very consistent. When I find something that works, I don't really deviate. So I probably need to be.
I had no idea.
Yeah, right. I need to be on Spotify more and like checking out new stuff.
Yeah.
So at the moment, no, it's really like, I mean, any inspiration I'm getting is really coming from the word and like trying to find creative ways to like get the word in there. Not that that's like some superior or like, oh, well, I don't need that because I'm getting it from the word. It's really just kind of like, I don't know. That's what's inspiring me more lately from a lyrical standpoint.
Yeah, I think for me, it's I'm going to list off a few that I'm listening to. For me, it's just nice when I'm in the car and I want to listen to music, but I'm feeling like I don't want to listen to secular music right now, but I also like not saying that I'd never not want to listen to worship music, but just something kind of in the middle. Like I can think of like Natalie Laney. You've heard of Natalie
Lane? Yep.
Lane, that's right. I love her. Her new album is awesome.
Yeah, she just got signed. She's doing really well.
She is so good.
Yeah.
Annie Wilson.
Ann Wilson.
Ann Wilson, sorry.
Oh my gosh.
She's so good. She just won a couple awards. Leanne Crawford, of course. Love her. Ellie Holcomb. I like her too.
I know who you're talking about.
She's so good. Of course, Eastgate Worship. Of course, Jude
Smith. That's worship stuff.
That's true, but it's good. I mean, Confidence. Would you consider Confidence that you and Jen wrote? Would you consider that a worship song in a sense? Or, I mean, yeah.
I mean, it's is it a congregational song? I think you're asking.
Yeah. Because we don't sing it in church.
We don't really all the time. So I mean, there's no rules to that. Like, what is technically a congregational song?
Yeah.
I would say I normally don't. It's more of an artistic song on the album.
Yeah, which is good. There's who's the there's this one guy I'm thinking of and I cannot. Caden. Have you ever heard of him? Caden and David Ryan Cook, those two. They did Hey God.
David Ryan Cook, yep. I know David.
You know him?
Yep, he's an awesome dude.
Very
goofy.
Jude knows everybody.
If you're listening, David, I love you, bro.
I doubt it, but that'd be cool. I listen to Hey God all the time.
David he sings on SEU worship. He does stuff with SEU.
I love SEU.
And he sings The King is Coming, which is one that we've done at Eastgate for years.
All the time.
Yeah, and we haven't done it in a while, but like, we used to do it a ton in like 2019, 2020, 2021. I met him in 2022. And then I knew that he was affiliated with SEU, and I was like, yeah, man, we love y'all's song, The King is Coming. And he was like, oh, yeah, man, I sang that one. I was like, what? I was like, you sang that song? And I like geeked out. It was cool. We worked on one I need to go back and listen to, but we wrote one time last year together. He's a cool guy.
Who's the guy who sang No Longer Bound?
Forrest Frank.
Frank. I love Forrest. He's so good. Did you have any? Of course you have some.
Well, my number one was going to say is Kane, which I'm surprised you didn't say.
Oh, sorry.
Yep.
Oh yeah, Kane. Of course, Kane.
Doing cool stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Recently, I've just been listening to like completely like just old 90s, 2000s Christian music. So I would have to say like
That hits.
Switchfoot, Newsboys, like have
Wow,
been constant,
dang.
I love Newsboys.
insane.
What was the song you had me pull lyrics for?
He Reigns.
He Reigns.
Phenomenal
We
song.
talked about it in the podcast last week.
I was so mad that
you
you sang that because that song's just been on repeat in my head ever
It's
Why
since.
were you
so
mad?
good.
You got to be there and listen to it.
Tribe, every tongue, every nation.
Why were you mad? You got to worship with it.
I wasn't mad. It just now it goes through my head all the time. But I
Rent-free.
love that song though.
It's so good.
All right, we're nearing 50 minutes.
Oh,
Yeah,
gosh.
sorry.
Well, anyways, thanks for listening to part one of our conversation. We were trying to keep it about music, but I knew we were going to get off topic.
Yeah,
sooner
100%.
rather than later.
We're not very good at staying on topic.
No. Anyways, Jude, where can people find you?
You can check me out on Instagram, Spotify. You can just Google. I've got a website. There's some links there, but you can just type in Jude Smith. It's a pretty niche name, so it should come up.
It's really funny.
There's some girls there too, so just watch out.
If you Google search Jude Smith, you will find the funniest picture of him.
You
of all
Googled
time.
search Jude?
Oh, there is a story behind that. Jonah and I were.
Okay, come back to
Yeah.
part two.
Part
for the
We'll
two.
answer.
share
Yes.
about that.
Come back to
Anyways.
part two.
Yeah, that'll get in the whole thing.
We'll
Anyways,
we'll see you guys, or we'll talk to you guys next week.
this is so weird.
That was so awkward.
It was awful, Steph. I'm
What?
sorry.
The
Okay,
ending?
cue the music. Go.
All right, peace and blessings. Bye.
Oh, it's still recording.